and is accessible to members of the public at any time during the course of this meeting. First item on the agenda is our consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. First item is item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of minutes of regular meeting on February 5th, 2018, as on file in the City Clerk's office. Item E, approval of Treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $253,566.21. Item F, approval of Boswell report of claims in the amount of $51,464.27. Item G, approval of special designated license applications of Community Players, Inc. for a fundraiser to be held on March 10th, 2018 from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at 412 Ellis Street, Beatrice, Nebraska. Item H, resolution number 6179, executing the statement of work with On-Site Health Diagnostic LLC for voluntary health screening, including optional prostate and thyroid screening for full-time employees in 2018. Item I, resolution number 6180, executing the agreement renewal to maintenance agreement number 4 with the Nebraska Department of Transportation for the period of January 1st, 2018 and December 31st, 2018, as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item J, resolution number 6181, executing the certificate of compliance to the Nebraska Department of Transportation as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Item K, resolution number 6182, executing the memorandum of agreement between Lincoln Fire and Rescue, the City of Lincoln, and the City of Beatrice for the Beatrice Fire Department to become a participating agency for the Nebraska Task Force 1 of the National Urban Search and Rescue Response System. Item L, resolution number 6183, reappointing Don Schneer as a member of the Housing Authority for a term expiring March 1st, 2023. Item M, resolution number 6184, authorizing the city, on behalf of Exmark Manufacturing Company, Inc., to enter into the State of Nebraska Department of Economic Development Site and Building Development Fund Business Recruitment and Expansion Project, contract number 18-01-112. Is there any item that any member of the council wants removed from the consent agenda? Anyone from the public? Mr. Catlin?
Mayor, I would move that all the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and are ratified as presented.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Party, that the items under the consent agenda be approved. Your vote, please. And that is approved 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item is the public hearing regarding the 1- and 6-year road and street plan for 2018. Tobias?
So we brought it back to you because last time we noticed that we did not get the hearing publicized in the paper, and so we have to redo the hearing. You have the same information you had last time. Jason's here to answer any questions you might have. No changes have been made. As we talked about last council meeting, the street projects haven't changed. I think the Bell Street and Summit Street are about 90% complete and ready to go out to bid here shortly. We got bids on the Mill and Overlay project, which you guys approved here, I believe, the last council meeting, so that's taken care of. Other than that, there have been no changes to the proposed 1- and 6-year street plan. We just have to have the hearing again due to lack of publication. So,
Gave you a couple of extra weeks to take a look at it. Is there any changes or modifications you'd like to see from anyone? Public? All right, Mr. Catlin, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I would move that the public hearing be closed at 7:05 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that the public hearing be closed at 7:05 p.m. Your vote, please. That is approved 6-0. Next is the resolution adopting 6185, adopting the 1- and 6-year road and street plan for 2018.
Mayor, I would move that resolution number 6185 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that resolution number 6185 be passed and adopted. Any other discussion regarding the 1- and 6-year road plan? Okay. And your vote, please. And that is approved 6-0. Resolution number 6185 has been passed and adopted. We have no ordinances to consider this evening. Public forum is next. The purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the City Council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the City Council at this time. Any council members have anything for the public forum? The public? All right. Next will be discussion and reports, and the Beatrice Police Department's 2017 annual report. Chief of Police Bruce Lang is on hand to give us the highlights of his police report.
Thank you. Bruce Lang, Chief of Police. In light of the speed of the council meeting tonight, I'll keep this brief and moving along. I'm pleased to present to you the report from the 2017 performance of the Beatrice Police Department. No real issues or highlights to jump out at you. A couple things I would point out. One, if you look closely, you'll see that drug arrests and drug offenses have skyrocketed over previous years, and the reason for that is we have a individual in conjunction with an individual from the sheriff's office that are focused on narcotics investigations, illegal drug transactions, and so forth in Gage County. So that has been productive, and there's been a number of arrests. Both have been made and will be made, both in 17 and in 18 for those offenses. So that activity level, it kind of indicates, that an emphasis that we've placed on that particular crime. On a sadder note, I would point out that Lieutenant Mike Oliver, who is in charge of our investigations unit, suffered back in December a severe injury, illness. He has not yet returned to duty. He is in rehab, and we're all hoping for the best for him as he fights through a brain injury that he suffered during this illness. In that absence, Sergeant Jay Murphy has been assigned double duty, so he not only is keeping an eye on his patrol shift, but he's also managing the investigations function. A lot of times when you lose somebody, you don't really realize not only the job that they did, but the wealth of knowledge that when you have a long-term employee that's been in investigations, worked major cases for us for a number of years, you just don't fill that void overnight. There just isn't anybody that just walks in and fills that. So we are getting people up to speed, but certainly him being gone is sorely missed by our department. So, with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. If after you're reading it, you have other questions that come up, what's this mean? I will probably point out one thing. When you look at calls for service on there, now that calls for service is for the whole jurisdiction that we dispatch for. So that would be all the calls for service that come through for the county and in some cases for the city of Crete. Do not confuse that with how many offenses as you look back in some of the other parts of the report that talks about crimes that have occurred and so forth. So if we have X number of burglaries in the calls for service, that may not correlate. In fact, it won't correlate with the same as the number that have occurred in the city of Beatrice, because the dispatch center is going to handle more of those than what the individual agencies are. So.
Chief, this isn't a question, but more of an observation. Look at the assault cases and the child abuse and neglect cases. Mm-hmm. They appear to have really escalated over time, and that's concerning, I think, to myself and should be concerning to this body. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what the answer is. I guess I would yield to you to kind of give me your observations.
Well, two observations. One of the anomalies of our work is if you do something pretty well and society changes their views of it, meaning that the society no longer tolerates it and they're much more likely to call it in and report it, your numbers are going to rise. it's going to give you the indication or the feeling that those offenses have increased greatly, and oftentimes that's not the case. We're just not tolerating them. We're investigating them harder, and the public is much, I can't even stress enough much in there, more likely to report suspicious activity involving children now than they were 15 years ago, 10 years ago even. And so the school officials, the daycare officials, if they see something that doesn't look quite right, they don't hesitate to call Officer Klaus, who's our youth services officer and has been for a number of years now. That's her specialty, and she has a great relationship with those people, and they don't hesitate to call her, and she goes out and we check those. So that makes those numbers somewhat inflated. We also do have issues, like every community does, of people who, for lack of a word, have a difficult time taking care of themselves and then let alone their children. And so those are incredibly complicated, difficult cases to work, and they take a lot of time, and unfortunately they don't always have a great outcome. So.
Thank you. Bob?
I'm glad you made the note of Crete and whatnot, because I guess that would be one of the reasons that the 911 hangups have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
That was significant.
Yeah.
Does that still take time away from you guys, though? Do you have to kind of follow up on a 911 hangup?
We answer every one, and Bob, I would tell you that we like those, if you can believe that, because that does a couple things. One, people can call and do call when they can't, for some reason, speak into the phone, and so they may call and hang up, and we go there and find out it's a medical problem or there's a domestic disturbance or whatever. Sure. That would not be a 911 hang-up call, but we treat all those like that, and that gives us an opportunity to speak to the people and say, hey, this is how the phone works, this is how the system worked. If your kid's playing with it, don't let that happen. But a lot of times there'll be a malfunction in the phone, quite honestly. That happens a lot of times, but it's not an issue. We may go a lot and we may do it a lot, but it's not taking us away from other things. It's not a big deal.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Phil?
Chief, I'm looking at alcohol-related arrests, and in the last 10 years, they're almost a third of what they used to be.
Yeah.
Is that more of awareness of it, or are we pushing more towards drug-related arrests, or it went from 352 arrests down to 125?
Yep. Significant decrease. We don't really know what the causal factor is, whether it's a combination of heavy enforcement before, the word's out, then, if you, and we want that word out there, that if we find you drunk driving, you're going to jail, and you're not going to pass go, you're going to go to jail. And so heavy enforcement a few years ago, the public is certainly much less tolerant of that now. And we get a tremendous number of call-ins from the public about suspected drunk drivers that we stop and check them out. And quite honestly, it's a lot of times texting, not drunk drivers. That's the predominant thing we find, is that they were texting. So they look impaired, they're going curb to curb, that kind of thing, but they were texting. So anyway, yeah, that's just kind of what we're seeing, and that's the only answer I have for that.
We don't have a call type for texting, huh?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
That's as simple as a couple keystrokes as creating a category. So we have that
I just
ability.
know after twice my mailbox got ran over, we should have a
you and me
texting
both.
category.
Rich?
Chief, with the problems that happened last week at the schools down in Florida and all over the nation, we have 2 officers, correct?
We have 2 school resource officers. We have one assigned full-time to the high school, one assigned full-time to the middle school.
And the elementary schools also. Tim goes to the elementary schools too?
Well, he goes there on a need basis, but he is not assigned to those schools.
Okay. Do you think that we've got proper safety for these kids, or?
Yeah, in Beatrice has been pretty progressive in their safety planning over the years. Some of the things that you see in other places, those of you that have been around for a while remember how the high school used to be laid out when you walked in and went around the corner to go in the office, and how they ripped that all out, and now they have a secured front with people monitoring the front door. In addition to the school resource officer, middle school secured, all the elementary schools. You can't just walk into an elementary school. You got to get buzzed in. All of those things over the last several years have progressed. And so can a tragedy occur here? Yes. Do our officers train for that? Yes. Do the school officials practice the different lockouts and lockdowns and so forth? Absolutely. It's part of their annual routine that they go through. They have lots of different contingency plans that they meet and discuss. They have a community-wide safety committee that looks at their policies, and they hire a company that comes in and does an audit of them. And so, I think they're as safe as they can be, but make no mistake that, a crazy person bent on doing something bad is going to be difficult to stop.
Any other questions? Anyone from the public? Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I guess I want to close by thanking you, because I have my colleagues across the state and across the country. Not every community has a forward-thinking mayor and council like we've enjoyed here, not just with this council, but with the ones that preceded, and so it's allowed us to plan for things like Rich is talking about and some of the questions we had tonight. So I want to thank you all as well. So thank you.
Very good. Appreciate it. All right. Next on the agenda is the city administrator's monthly report. Tobias?
Again, just a few highlights as you went through there. If you notice, we have a few TIF projects coming down the pike to you guys. The proposal for Y has been signed. That was the Hannibal View project. That redevelopment agreement's been signed. Z, which is the Heido property at 301 Court Street, will be coming to you March 5th. So will AA, which is the Exmark TIF project, and BB, which is the Tiemann TIF project. Those are all set to come before this body on March 5th for their public hearing and give anybody an opportunity to come speak on those projects. But those are moving forward as we talked about. Demolition, I think last time we met, we said we'd gone out for bids on 3 different properties. Those 3 properties have now been demolished. That was 411 South 10th Street, 1118 South 7th, and 1608 Market Street. All those houses have been demolished and removed. The Carnegie Building, if you haven't been to the Carnegie Building, if you go in there, you'll notice we're having some issues going on in the Carnegie Building. We're trying to figure out exactly what's happening. There's some plaster coming off in the entryway. I believe we're going to have it removed this week. We have to do all of this through the State Historical Preservation Office, and so we have to get their approval before we remove the plaster. We have to get their approval on how to make the corrections and the changes that need to be made. But this week, I believe we have a company coming in to remove the plaster, hopefully get a look behind there to see what's going on. Is it a settling issue? Is it a water off the roof issue? Is it old rafters and new rafters? If you remember, we did the remodel here a couple years ago. Is it the interplay between those pieces? We're not quite sure, but we're going to take a look there. And then we also have a company coming down to take a look at the roof as well to see if that's an issue. I believe Michael Fakler, the local architect, is going to help us out as well. He's going to go look at it. If you remember, he helped us out when we did the roof project, maybe a decade ago now. He was involved in that. And so everybody's take some time out to help us try to figure out what's going on with the building, but we will probably need to make some significant repairs to that building here, probably sooner rather than later. There are some different grant opportunities that might be available, but that's just something we're going to have to kind of look and see first what the issue is, and then how do we go about fixing it and coming up with a cost on that one. The other item, if you look in the Exhibit B of monthly report, you'll see that the unrestricted or the general fund has gone negative. If you'll remember, those are the unrestricted funds in the city's coffers. In the past, they had gone negative. That's probably about 5 or 6 years ago. We had done a good job building up our cash reserve, and so we didn't have that happen. Because if you recall, most of our cash comes in June after people pay their property taxes in May, and again come in October after you pay your September tax. And so in the past, again, 5-6 years ago, there were periods of time when that cash balance went negative. Now, it doesn't mean the city's going to not make payroll. It doesn't mean the city's going to bounce checks. None of those things. There's enough other funds in there that we use to keep things moving. But the gas plant's the reason why. If you recall, we built up a nice cash reserve. The gas plant came in. We're still getting significant bills on the gas plant. We're still waiting for the last one coming down for the gas cylinders to get cleaned up. We have not gotten that bill as of yet. But then there'll be continuing monitoring going on for that site for at least the next decade. But that's been the biggest impact to your cash reserves. And then finally, somebody asked about the legislature. As you know, they're in session. I went up and testified on LB 709 the other day. Thank you to Senator Baker for introducing that for us. It has to do with plumbing boards. Trust me, everybody was excited to talk about plumbing boards up there. But it was a statute, quite honestly, it was written in 1901. And not only us, but no other city out there was following all the rules. They were kind of archaic and need to be updated. And so that hearing went well. We're looking forward to that bill hopefully getting out yet on a consent agenda and moving forward as that proceeds. Other than that, there's the typical things up there. Not a whole lot is moving yet. They're still having a lot of committee hearings. Things are progressing slowly. Some bill on TIF will come out this year. There are several of them in the hopper right now. We're kind of waiting to see what moves. But it looks like something will come out, probably require some additional notice and some of those things. But honestly, we had a TIF hearing tonight for planning and zoning, and other than myself and the board, there was nobody else at the TIF meeting. So you can give notice all you want. Some people just aren't excited by TIF. I don't understand why not. But anything else you guys have questions on or want to talk about?
Questions, guys? Anybody from the public? All right. Our next regular scheduled meeting will be on March 5th in these chambers, and we will have a work session next Monday, February 26th, also in these chambers. Mr. Catlin?
Mayor, I would move that the meeting be adjourned at 7:22 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook. Meeting be adjourned at 7:22 p.m.
Just a yes kind
And that is approved 6-0. Thanks for coming.
You're a second man tonight, one of the other.
You guys got lucky.
yeah.